What's up, everybody? Luxury Arts. I'm here in the space that we have been allowed to come into, the great artist, Raven. Today, we're going to sit down, have an interview, but not just an interview. We're going to deep dive into her life and just see, what makes Raven be Raven the artist. Good morning, Raven.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. I appreciate you allowing us to come into your space. I've been waiting to do this interview. I've been moving around, but we're here today, and I want to thank you. And I'm going to give you these flowers while they're here so you can smell them.
Appreciate that.
And that's the reason why Luxury Arts is in your space. So, can you just tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. My name is Raven George. I'm an artist, and I have been painting, drawing, creating since the age of 3 years old with my Nana. Her name is also Raven. If you look around the room, she's over there in the picture and also in the painting behind you. And that was the catalyst to my artistry and really figuring out ways of being able to transmute emotion through art. My chosen mediums are oil paints, ink, and also graphite. My first love is drawing, though, so
Okay.
I really do appreciate pen and ink, pencil, drawing, and if it needs be, I'll add a touch of color.
Okay. But hold on for
Okay.
a second. Hold on for a second.
Yeah.
Because you just kind of went into my first question.
Okay.
And that's why I didn't want to cut you off, because it was great at the moment. But let's dive back a little bit earlier into the younger Raven, 3-year-old. And can you give us just some insight on what made you move in this direction?
Well, we would explore through all different types of styles of art. So at first it started in the newspaper. My Nana would get the morning paper and then she would give it to me after she was finished. And I would just pretty much draw on all the faces, add mustaches. It was fun. It was fun. And then she noticed oh, she's really good at this. So let me continue to hone her skill. So we would go outside, pick up pine cones, leaves, and transfer its texture onto papers with different methods. And every day, I would ultimately have a sketchbook, Nana, what are we drawing today? We would draw outside, we would paint. But I never started out as painting, although I had some experience with watercolor. It was mostly drawing for me. And because of my skill being honed at such a young age, I grew up and painting became easy. I just had to learn the medium at that point.
Wow. Shout out to Nana.
Yes.
That's so she was your biggest supporter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And she was, I would say, the head of your community as far as your supporting community of your art. She was the head.
For sure.
She was the one that started it all.
Yeah. My mom, my dad, everyone knew I knew how to draw, but it was just she knows how to draw. Raven, draw this, draw that, draw this brat doll. And one of my greatest strengths is that I could use my imagination to draw. Not many people can do that. They need some type of resource or photograph or inspiration, but I could literally just draw how I'm feeling or what I see based on what I imagine and conceptualize in my mind.
Okay. That kind of helps me dive into my next question.
Okay.
So I read before that you do a lot of observing of people in the world. What made you start seeing the world so deeply like that?
I want to say since I was young, I don't know what it was. I would just stare. And my mother used to always say, it's not polite to stare at people. So I would try my best not to, but there would always be some type of compelling aura or energy about said individuals as to why I wanted to stare at them to begin with. I just thought, like, I wonder where this person is going, what they're thinking about, what they're feeling. And yeah, I would say, like, ever since I was younger, like, that just has always been an impeding thought. Like, I've always been intrigued in other people's lives and how they ultimately feel. And I guess that's something that we don't necessarily think about because we're caught up in our own ideals
Right.
and life and our own feelings that we don't really have time to think about others
Mm-hmm.
unless it's within our inner scope. So I was just studying people, and that has slowly but surely become part of my process, specifically emotional intimacy.
So, so with that being said, do you feel like your art is more documenting people or understanding them?
Mm, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say it's a little bit of both. If I'm documenting with my eyes, because there's not always a camera or some
Mm-hmm.
type of voice recording involved, I very much like intimate settings where I get to know people and hear their stories. And I guess there's something about my energy too, as to why some people feel inclined to come up to me and start telling me their
No,
whole life
you have
story.
great energy. You have great energy. Yes.
And I just allow them to talk. How often do you have the individuals willing to listen to you? And yeah, like, I really enjoy talking to people. I enjoy listening to people, allowing them to express because maybe they had a hard day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they've been holding on to what they were holding on to for the past 30 years. And I was finally that portal for them to be open. So, yeah, I think it's more about the inner standing than it is about documentation.
So with that being said, I've noticed over the time that I've been watching your work, it's like it's emotional. You said that already here.
Mm.
Emotional and layered. How would you describe your style?
Mm. You know, my style is simply Raven. Like, I think
Okay.
there's no other way to explain it because I'm able to adapt and act as a chameleon in a
Mm,
way. So, depending on the piece, if it needs a change, I will honor that change. And if it needs to stay consistent, I will also honor that too. But I don't necessarily have a word. I guess you could say like multifaceted, multidimensional
mm,
because of how I'm able to change up styles and mediums, and you still are able to detect that that's Raven's work
mm,
based on this little curvature of a line or the staple of B's and I's that you'll see, certain reoccurring motifs. Um, but other than that, my work is constantly changing
yes.
in a beautiful way, and I just allow it to evolve. But of course, when I notice that I've done a thing and it looks really good, I try to continue to repeat that, but allow it to evolve naturally.
So hold on to that repeat. But I've also noticed you use a lot of bold coloring, red for per se.
Hmm.
Um, can you give me any insight on why? That is something that I've noticed in a few of your paintings.
Um, I would say that occurs naturally. Oftentimes, when I'm seeing the world, I see it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I have trouble putting my rose colored glasses down.
Mm, okay.
Um, and I would say, like, with my art, I don't necessarily have to do that because I'm creating versions of the world based on how I see it, which is bright and
Mm,
vibrant
okay.
and iridescent. So I don't necessarily have to take the innocence of those lens off. because I ultimately define those rules. The color red, I don't know. I think that's just like an inner child thing.
Okay.
My favorite color was red at one point, and it still is,
Okay.
to her, little raven. And it just shows up. So, like I said, I am big on surrender. So I think it's important that if you feel something, if you feel compelled to use a certain color or style, that you simply honor that and don't go against the feeling.
Okay. I understand that. I was noticing. I said, let me ask this question for sure. When I said repeat, so we're gonna talk about this series, Wildflower of Joy.
Wildflower Joy.
Wildflower of Joy.
Yes.
How did you? It's not just one piece. It's a series. How did you come up with that concept?
That's a great question. The first work I did, well, I'll take you back.
Okay, let's go.
A few years ago, I put together my own show called Raven's Room. It was right on South Broad Street. And every piece was different. You might have had like maybe 2 or 3 where they were pretty similar, but it was a showing of all of my different styles and how diverse I could be. And one of those pieces were hood babies.
Yes.
And everybody knows hood babies. So there's a background of like blue and pinks, clouds. And then you have these 4 beautiful brown children dancing with this fluid fabric that is covering them, but also moving along with them. And because it did so well, I'm like, we're going to put a pin in that. Yes. Okay. Hood Babies did so well that I decided to put a pin in it. But ultimately, I wanted to explore other pockets of my work and see where I would go with it. But based on the current climate, especially with the bombing of Palestine and Sudan, I'm a very spiritual person, and I'm also very obedient when it comes to my God. So I felt like Allah was telling me, you need to focus on this. Okay. Like, I know you want to explore down other avenues right now, but I think it's really important that you go down this path. So from there, I was just like, you know what? We're going to venture a little bit more into inner child healing, especially because people are more open and receptive of that now during their journey. And I just went. I went back into older notebooks and found like sketches from 3 years ago. I would have never thought that they would resurface and become this or become that. And I went back into it and got my linens. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to address these topics. And again, that's where the rose colored glasses come in, because when you look at the current state of Sudan and Palestine, it's sad.
Yes.
And it's gruesome. It's to the point where like I become so angry, but with that anger and that rage, I'm able to see the love that I have for life and for people and for young children to even do this kind of work. So it really motivated me to like feel pains that I was even going through, heartbreak, and being able to transmute that into something more beautiful, but still feel like that undertone of bittersweet and melancholy blues. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go back over it when I first originally looked at it, and I was like, hold on, this is a whole series of stuff. And I was like, okay, we gotta definitely, of course, dive into it, but I needed to hear from you besides just my own personal research. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, let's you talk about your like your drawing and your ink and your pencils and your pens and your oils. Um, can you describe how the emotions of those connect to your creations?
Hmm. For me, ink has layers of transparency that I admire. Because that's how I ultimately operate throughout my life. I'm very transparent, and I prefer that in my relationships, platonic or romantic.
Right.
So I feel like ink allows me to build up those layers of opaqueness if it needs be. Pencil, you can easily see hesitation through it. Consistency. I try not to use an eraser because if I need to change, you just become more bolder with your lines and your marks. And oils, it's like relentless. It's like I'm going to dry when I want to. And I love that because these mediums make up all that I am and they're unapologetic. It's permanency. Once it's dry, that's it. The same with ink. Once you make a mark, that's it. I think the pencil plays a middle ground between the two because it's the only one that's willing to be flexible and adaptable and even forgiving to be able to erase and go back on a mark that you made. So yeah, I like those three because there's a nice even balance, and although very different, vastly different,
breakdown.
it's just able to communicate in a way that makes sense, especially to illustrate something that I want to come across to viewers.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've never heard that breakdown like that before, but I love that,
It's cool.
But I've also, I've also read in that you mentioned um, how some people disconnect with themselves. So, what made you realize that people are disconnecting from themselves?
The moments where I've allowed myself to be disconnected. I think to truly know people, you must really know yourself. And I spend a lot of time with myself, but I ultimately allow myself to feel pain that a lot of individuals won't. And I've also hidden behind vices as well because I didn't necessarily want to feel a thing or address. But when you have external sources getting in the way of your process, especially your artistic process, it's very difficult for you to be aware and present in those moments. So I think through all the hardship, the growing pains, kind of traveling on that spiritual journey and recognizing like all the different facets that make me me, like going through that process of forgiving yourself, that alone is very difficult. Learning to really love yourself. What does it mean to love yourself? What daily habits, micro habits are you doing as to how you are able to say that and believe it? And although healing is never linear, I feel more connected with myself now because I've allowed myself to slow down and ask these questions. But I also pay attention to how people live, and it's also no judgment. But I'm able to see myself in individuals like, oh, I was there, or I'm currently here on this journey. We're here together. So I wanted to make work that would ultimately be what's the word, not resonant, but where individuals can relate. Like, I know I'm not perfect, I know I go through these things, and at the same time I'm still on this journey to become better and to become more connected. To go deeper into that is going back to the inner child and how death isn't like, it isn't solely for the physical. You have spiritual deaths, you have emotional deaths. And I think when you go through life and things happen, a part of us naturally becomes disconnected with that inner child. So we get older, we don't necessarily want to listen to the gut. We don't want to listen to what little he or she has to say because we think we know it all, or we're afraid to honor that part of themselves. So when I've actually stopped doubting myself and allowed myself to go back to the moments that hurt most, I've noticed my voice becoming louder internally to the point where I couldn't even ignore it anymore. So I'm like, this is how I was living before. Like I wasn't listening to you, wasn't honoring you. I'm so sorry. And I think that's an easy thing to do, especially when we're moving so fast through life and trying to go through these perils that we're faced with. But we're never alone. We're really just kids in adult bodies, if you think about it. We're all just trying to figure it out, all trying to live and do our best. So with that understanding, I'm like, you know what? I think I could make work where people could look at Hood Babies, or they could look at Ramadan, they could look at War Hearts and be like, I can see myself in this kid, or it'll take me back to a moment where I remember most and I feel love again.
And that you just segued it right into the next thing I was going to ask. Do you feel like your art is helping people reconnect, or is it more just personal for you?
I would say, based on the conversations that I've had with people, that it's helping them reconnect. One individual has shared with me that my work reminds them of like home and motherland. And I've also had personal experience where people have cried or felt vulnerable because it has brought them to a moment of hurting where they need to address it. Everyone's on their own journey. Everyone's in different stages and phases. But my work is meant to invoke what we have been suppressing for so long. And whether you decide to pick up where you left off to ultimately build those pieces and come back home to yourself, that's up to you. But I'm just the starting point or the finishing point, depending on where said individual is in their journey. But I think in the beginning, my work was for me. But once I put it out there, it's no longer mine.
Yes.
So I am okay with that other people are going to feel differently or resonate differently or have an opposed perception of my work based on how I recently perceived it. But I think hearing those insights helped me expand as an artist, because I might say, I never even thought of that. I didn't consider this at all. And I might write it down. Or I've heard an individual say that they feel a lot of tension in my work. That's something that I haven't considered at all. So I write it down, and it's somewhere on a sticky note around here, but I wrote it down and I'm like, where is this tension coming from? And I still have yet to figure it out.
It just made me think about it just off of what you did. Yeah, I've looked over your work. I don't have that feeling also, but I'm a tap in, especially after we are finished here. I'm gonna definitely dive deep into what I can look into it about for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it might be the juxtaposition between like healing and how it's never really sunshine and rainbows. Like you're gonna have hardship that you go through. And there is a layer of suffering, but it's like, are you, as I mentioned earlier, are you willing to suffer through this knowing that you're going to be reconnected and be one step closer to being connected with your highest self? Or are you willing to suffer through not facing what you need to face and still having to suffer anyway, but there's just no evolution? So there, like I said, there's a constant state of evolving with my work. And Yeah, I guess that's where the tension comes from.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, finding out that somebody sees tension, somebody sees healing, somebody sees health and everything in your work. Is it when you're creating, do you feel more in control or is it you letting go?
Definitely letting go.
Letting go.
Definitely letting go. I have to set up the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like I rarely just jump into a piece. Like I have to come in and unwind and take off my shoes, get grounded, spend some time outside because I'm inspired by life. Music plays a mega point in it, especially because going back to childhood is something that me and my nana used to connect over. So a lot of my feelings are stemmed from the musical side. And I light my incense and I figure out like, what am I going to use today? Am I working on canvas? Am I working on paper? And from there, I just allow myself to let go. Sometimes I might have a concept or I'll flip through my old sketchbooks to see what applies to today. And I just allow myself to let go from there. But the moments in which I do feel myself controlling, it just doesn't work out because I get frustrated and then I have to walk away from the canvas because 10 times out of 10, I don't like the piece.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not always perfect. Like I have my days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, change it up a little bit.
Okay.
I see you do a lot of work in the community. Why do you feel like that's important?
Community work is important because although I love my solitude, you can't really heal in isolation. And when I have encounters with people and mothers, homeless children, I view myself as a mirror at that point. So how people see me, I'm ultimately seeing them in that same light. And it just allows me to become more softer, especially when handling people, how I handle myself, because you just never know what people are going through.
Right.
Specifically, like when I was working on the mural for the Creek to Canal project.
Yes. Talk about it.
There were like some mothers that came up to me and just felt inspired to like talk about their life, but eventually it became like their problems and they become emotional. And if I can be that person for you to cry on my shoulder and give you a hug and wipe your tears, I am going to do that. And I think it's important because, like I said, all these wars, you want to view that person as family from that point. So I know I can call on you, you can call on me because we were able to surf this conflict together, or we cleaned up the neighborhood together, or you beautified my neighborhood. So it all boils down to respect as well, and how you were able to show up and be consistent despite what the outside looks like. And here I was. I didn't have a car at the time, so I would drag my wagon down the street with all my art supplies. No one's bothering me. People are smiling and joyful, and some others not. But still being able to make space, smaller spaces and portals for healing to happen, for understanding to happen, for perceptions to be further expanded on. I've been doing community work for a while, even outside of like the arts. I worked at Capital City Farm, where I've had the pleasure of feeding my community. And I believe art and nature go hand in hand.
I believe so.
Being able to feed the community, be able to beautify, as well as learn the people and seeing how all those things connect. I think it's a beautiful process. And I wouldn't be able to create the work that I create without those individuals at all.
Okay.
So I'm grateful to them.
Mm. You're hitting my questions right before they come, which is so it's a great thing, because I was going to ask you, on your healing journey, do you feel like healing and working with the community go hand in hand? But you know,
Yes, yes, because people don't really know where to start. And I don't believe in setting up a stand and talking at the people about God, about healing. And like, I don't preach at the people.
okay.
I ultimately allow them to come to me based off of the spaces that I make. And if you feel inclined to those spaces, I'm going to welcome you. Um, but I think it's very important because a lot of individuals have never been exposed to that. They don't even know what it is. How do I heal? What is the step? How do I begin to believe in myself? How do I know that I'm deserving of better? How do I know that I need to walk away, especially when I've been conditioned for years? And if you really want to get specific, generations of this specific behavior and thinking as to why, like, okay, I'm deserving of this and this is enough. So when you come in after doing the work and you have a pretty good understanding of yourself, I think you're able to hold the next person's hand and at least assist them to getting there. And it's not up to you to carry that burden or to walk the long walk with them, but at least you could help them get started, or at least realize, like I can think differently. I could shift. I could move just based off this one little thing, or incorporating art into my life, incorporating healthy eating into my life, or doing volunteer work, or even bringing my child more to play so that way I could play with them. So I think it's ultimately about the opportunities that you're presenting to the community and how they're able to receive it. But I'm always making space for healing because the only way to is through.
So you've talked about healing multiple times in this interview, and just and me noticing a lot of your work from your website and everything like that. How has art helped your healing?
Art has helped my healing because ultimately I've always only had two choices, and that's either to solely address a thing or make art about it. And a lot of times I don't have the capacity to necessarily talk or address maybe mother wounds, father wounds, things that I've been through. Because again, like everyone's on their own stage and phase, and there's only so much understanding that they're able to grasp. So I'm forced to, or not forced, but I decide to lean into the art because I know at least if I have a place where I'm able to transgress and transmute that energy, I'm no longer carrying that burden and that baggage that I once did. So I might enter the studio feeling pissed off, angry, sad, hysterical. And by the end of it, I feel lighter, even if it's not happy, but I ultimately still feel lighter, and there's joy in feeling light because I no longer have to carry it. And then I look at my pieces and I become inspired and even in awe of myself because I couldn't believe that I made that. And sometimes that's emotional because you become grateful and expressing that through praise, that God has given you a gift to be able to express yourself through mediums. And not many people have the luxury to even draw.
Right.
People don't have pencils. They don't have paper. So the fact that I could come to my studio and open up any type of book or roll of canvas and be able to create, like, that is a privilege and one that I don't take for granted. So I think in knowing that and being obedient, like I said, and consistent in my practice, it has helped me evolve through my healing journey and make it easier versus more difficult, which I know it could be.
Okay. Mm. So you mentioned that you were getting back in your flow state.
Mm-hmm.
What does that feel like?
It feels good. It feels good because I am reclaiming my time and my power. And with that understanding, I know that I am unstoppable unless I am getting in my own way. I resonate with that as well.
Okay.
Doubts, negative thinking, stalling when I know I should be creating. But with allowing myself to be in a flow state even before I create, I'm able to recognize when I'm doing a thing that might be harmful and detrimental to the process.
Okay.
And be like, stop that.
That's a good thing.
Get in the studio. Or allow yourself to feel in the moment. Because you can't run away from it.
No.
And it feels empowering to just be present. And for a while, like, I haven't been able to really draw, and I don't know what that's about. Maybe I do, but I think your art knows what you need to heal from and what you need to address before you do. And at some point, maybe I was able to unblock that. But now, like, when I open up my sketchbook, I'm able to just draw and start and not overthink it. And that feels really good. It feels invigorating. It makes me feel like I'm alive and not simply surviving.
You're on point again. I'm telling you, I was just going to ask you how do you make your days better when it's hard to create?
I would say I've always been a free spirit. So before I would just kind of like go, no plan, no nothing. Like I would just dive right into things. But lately, I really honor schedules. And a schedule that you could hold yourself accountable to and be consistent. So a schedule for me looks like getting up in the morning, but before I leave the bed, make sure I meditate.
Okay.
Because I know that's going to be the make or break point of my day. Make sure that I'm getting good breakfast. I love slow mornings. I don't need to be rushed. Because then if I'm rushing, the rest of the day is going to be like that. So really just honoring those schedules and those small moments that contribute to your joy and your peace. Taking time to write, looking over your schedules. When you go outside, taking your shoes off to get grounded in the grass, tree hugging, watching the sky, looking at the sun, like simple pleasures, taking baths. Like when I don't have those things, it makes me feel disconnected.
Okay.
But when I'm putting those things into practice, I think naturally I just want to do more of the things that I love because I'd be honoring myself and also honoring God. But when you don't do those things, it's very easy to be like, oh, I don't want to go to the studio today, or I don't feel like creating, or there's a natural internal blockage going on inside because you become stagnant by not being consistent. It's like change is the only constant. So you have to be constantly moving. And when I say moving, I don't mean like booked and busy, but just moving in a way that allows you to let go at the same time. Like doing those things allow me to surrender and let go to the things that I love to do, which is making art and being inspired by the community or even having this conversation with you.
Yes.
But if I'm not filling my daily habits up with positivity, it's so easy to get in my own way.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you just said something. Slow morning. I got to try it a little bit more.
Try
I have to
it.
try that a little bit more. Sometimes I speed up so fast. And it works in my world, but I need to try to take my time with it. I'm going to do that.
Yes.
I'll honestly do that. What are some things people don't see being an artist?
There are a few things specifically, and this is like a big pet peeve of mine. Like, there is magic involved, but not to the point where I can just point to a canvas and the piece is done. These things take work. They take hours, months. This piece in particular, like Ramadan, I started recording with that body of work, and that piece took a little over 1,000 hours to do. Someone who's not an artist doesn't see that. They just think you can go up and do it within a couple of seconds. But there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. There's a lot of moments in which you didn't want to come in here, but you did it anyway. There's also content. Are you reading? Did you endure a certain experience before you could make that? So there's a lot of living involved. Like, it's more than just like wearing the artist's glasses or the hat and having the, like the vibe, like the jive of an artist. Like we live life, like we feel deeply, and sometimes it's hard. And I think people might have this preconception that like we have it easy or it is easy because we're artists, or this is just like a hobby and art plays a small factor and everything else revolves around it. And that's not how it works. Art is constantly moving and evolving and revolving around everything. And that's why we have science, math, and technology, because you have the art of being able to build all these things and conceptualize these things, starting from ideas and images, imagining, but ultimately feeling. And again, a lot of people don't allow themselves to even feel moved enough to want to create and inspire and to be inspired. So I wish individuals had more respect for artists, especially in terms of paying them. No, I cannot do this in a week. I can't do this in a day. I need you to respect my time, because I also have a schedule that I need to honor too, and people that I need to honor and see. So yeah, I just wish that was a little bit more respected and noticed.
I understand that. I hear that from a lot of my artist friends, and I was the collector and consumer. That was where I paid you, and I had to really start understanding that. And it wasn't a bad thing to have the conversations with them. But once I started put myself in their shoes, I understood it a lot more. So
yes,
I am an advocate of that. When people ask me how long the artist gonna take, I'm like, listen, you gotta let them cook.
Yeah. And communication is key too, especially from the artist standpoint. Like, if you know something is going to take a long time, be forthright with that. Don't try to shorten and condense, because also things happen. You might say 2 weeks and then you're just now getting the zest that you needed at the end of your 2-week cat in order to be able to create. So really give that person, hey, I'll give you a month. I'll give you a 2-month deadline, depending on what it is. So communication plays a big part of that too.
I understand that. What do you want people to feel or have their experience when they have your work? What is the experience you want when they have your work?
Hmm. I would say I want people to feel seen.
Mm.
I want people to feel heard, um, beautiful as well. Like looking at my work as a mirror again, um, and able to see themselves in a light that they've never seen themselves before or haven't seen themselves in a long time. Because how often do we really look into the mirror and take a good look at ourselves? Not to see if like our makeup's good, our hair is good, but the inner you, the spiritual you that is working in tangent with your body, your mind, and ultimately the soul. So when people see my work, like I want them to feel like they're coming back home to themselves. Um, I want them to feel good. Like I received a message today and I'm going to take that to the heart or take that with me for the rest of my journey.
So, if somebody is watching this right now and they feel disconnected, what words would you have for them?
Be open, because I'm not saying like I'm a healer of any sorts. I just do what I'm told by God, not by people, and what I feel. But if you allow yourself to be open, you never know how an interaction with an individual within community and art, how that might impact you. So you just got to be open hearted, be open minded, and keep your spirit open. And maybe it might not impact you today, but it might tomorrow or 10 years from now. But it's okay. Yeah, everyone's different.
Okay. I have to take that in consideration for myself. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I am not just the interviewer, but somebody that sometimes feel disconnected. So I would take that all. And that's just about it. I appreciate everything. This is Luxury Arts. We're here giving flowers while the artists can still smell them.
Yes, thank you so much.
I thank you for allowing us in your space, being a great host for us. Is there anything you want to leave with after that?
Just be love, be light. Yeah. Be open and just be gentle with yourself, man. It's a lot going on in the world, and it's a lot when you open your phones, and less consuming, more creating, however that might look like for you.
Thank you.
Peace.